Hello, everybody. Once again, I'm Lee McCrafton Jr., aka Zorwatch. I'm Less Than Guru, and today I would like to talk about my clergy grouping, clergy class that has the occupational character classes under it. So, my clergy are very much they get their powers from some other source. So, they don't study to get their powers. That's an academic. They don't get their powers naturally. That's an intuit. They get their powers from another source. That does include ones that Palladium would consider men of magic, like warlocks and witches. So those occupational character classes I removed from men of magic and I put into clergy because they get anything that gets their power from a higher power is a clergy. Even if they're not having a church or a temple, sometimes they'll do stuff underground or in covens or different things. So, what are my clergy? My clergy, and I've changed a few names to fit the mythology of my world. So, instead of having witches, I have beloved. There's a sinister background that clergy, like a priest or a cleric or a paladin, they're required by their deity to do things in a certain way depending on their church. So a lot of times the deity might have aspects, but a organized church produces dogma and teachings that must be followed within their influence. And you might have two different churches that worship the same deity, but have different dogma and rituals and rites and stuff. Beloved consider themselves loved by the devil lords, the infernal powers, because they do the pacts, kind of like the witches do in Palladium First Edition. But except for what that pact says, they consider that they have freedom. They don't have to do a lot of these things, even though their pact might say you need to establish a religion. It's not necessarily or a coven or a grouping of worshipers, but it doesn't necessarily tell them how to do it or what rites to do or anything like that. So since they're the ones creating it, they feel that I have the power to create it. I don't have to follow it even if they didn't want to. So it's a warped sense of freedom through restriction, almost a double speak type thing, but they call themselves beloved because of that. And that's why I use the name beloved. It's just like a sinister twist on the name. They just feel that they're loved. The cleric is slightly tweaked from the shaman. They are a middle between the more men of arms paladin, which I've stated multiple times in my game. It's the paladin occupational character class plus the Holy Crusader that have kind of come together. So I wanted I'll say this. The shaman class I liked, but everything that they did, the priest did, except for the prayers. And the priest's prayers are objectively better. The two shaman prayers are decent, but the priest prayers are just objectively better. I'm sorry. To me, it's not a subjective thing. You get a couple of bonuses that the priests give better bonuses, and you have slight possible futures that you could do. A priest could use divine intervention or something to do the same thing and more things with it. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to have a more martial class, but not to the extent of the paladin. So I basically took those visions of grandeur and the visions of the future telling. I can't remember what that was, inspiration or something like that. And I gave them a little more martial skills. So that's how I differentiated them. And it has become an extremely popular character class. It went from being one of the least popular occupational character classes when I did Palladium First Edition, kind of what I thought was straight. I thought it was raw, but it wasn't raw because you can't do it raw. But Now it's one of the more popular my rewrite. So that is the cleric. The druid, I just have them be. I think they were in clergy, so they worship nature or they worship the nature deity Adrethin. Again, I explained what paladins are. Priests are pretty much priests from first edition, and servitor is the warlock. I That's one that I just didn't like the name warlock to represent an elementalist, and I almost came up with elementalist, but in previous games and in my world, a game that I made Dunamis, as well as other things, I called them servitors. So I just decided to keep the same name with the mythology of that. They are elementalist warlocks under a different name. So the things that they can do, explain my character point video or my character point redux, which is a slight variation of my combat point video, because I tweaked it a little bit to set things. The character points, they can use those to increase PE, IQ, or MA. So physical endurance for the clergy, because a lot of them are having to do certain things, even if they're just rites. IQ, because even though they might have a lot of dogma and stuff, they still have to read, write, they have to know how to present that stuff. And that also, so that's both a combination of IQ or MA. And I do see where my copy and paste said academic level, so I'm going to have to change that to clergy, make a note, because Palladium is known for their messes up with copy and paste, and that kind of goes with a lot of things. The other thing that they can do is they can make divine items. So, like my academics, and I think I said the adept, and maybe the mind mage can make mystical items, psychic items, or magic items that I allow my clergy to be able to make divine items. I just like the idea of allowing my players to make their own magic items, their own holy items, and things like that. It's just something that I have enjoyed both as a player and a game master of allowing my players to do. So that is what the clergy can do with their character points, as well as add a d6 to strike, add a d6 to saving throw, and subtract a d6 from damage that they are taking. So having said that, I am Lumen Crafton Jr., aka Zorwell John, less than guru. And until next time, when we get into the clergy occupations, I will catch you later.